After giving Animal Well a healthy dose of playtime since its release, I can say with confidence that this game is an obvious masterpiece of the indie Metroidvania genre. Oh, mamma mia, there's so many things this game just gets right, and it's a shining example of how one man's dream can lead to a legend. The game was developed by Billy Basso, a veteran of the video game industry who's been working on this as a solo project for the past 7 years. There were of course those who followed his journey through its entire development, but the game gained more mainstream publicity when YouTube gangster Video Game Donkey appeared out of nowhere on an official Nintendo Direct to announce that this would be the flagship project of his new publishing company, Big Mode. From there, I'm sure we all had a feeling this game would be good, but it was unclear whether it would be a run-of-the-mill Metroidvania, some sort of experimental puzzle platformer, or maybe something deeper. Well, let me tell you, this game goes deep. Oh boy, does it go deep. And it's good, too. Like, stupid good. In fact, I don't think it's a stretch to put this right up there with games like Cave Story, Axiom Verge, and Hollow Knight as one of the must-play indie side-scroller bashers released so far in the 21st century. Now that might sound like I have my honeymoon goggles strapped on a bit too tight, but I'm perfectly willing to back up that claim. In this video I want to go over 5 key reasons why Animal Well is one of the greats. Before I start, spoiler warning, I will be spoiling certain moments and areas of the game. You don't have to beat it, but to be safe, I would say don't watch this video until you've found an item called the disc. Okay, so 5 reasons why Animal Well slaps, starting with 1. It's unpredictable. A problem that many games run into is that they lose their ability to surprise the player way too early. This doesn't just apply to poorly designed games, even some of the industry's finest often fall prey to this. For example, Alien Isolation, incredible game. The first time you have to sneak past the alien, it's uniquely terrifying and exciting. By the 10th time, it's just alright, and then by the 50th time, it's completely stale. Games can get formulaic once you start to figure out the patterns and systems and loops that they're built upon. And if a player gets too familiar with these things, their immersion starts to break, because in the back of their mind they know what's going to happen next. And so they may end up just going through the motions until they either beat the game, or get bored and tap out before the end credits. Animal Well doesn't let that shit happen. This game keeps you on your toes, because from start to finish, room to room, anything can go down. It gets wacky and ridiculous out of nowhere at the most random times, and I love it. This isn't the kind of game you can play passively in the background, because every room could be hiding some sort of clue that you need to catch, a secret that you need to find, or a sudden attack from some freakish animal, like in this room where you get jumped by a fucking kangaroo. It's not meant to be a scary game by any means, but Billy Basso makes it clear on the official website that survival horror was one of the game's main inspirations, and he leans into that in a couple ways. 1, by giving the player limited resources. Enemies can attack at any time, and your only reliable protection from most of them are fireworks, which you won't always have on hand. And 2, by hitting you with some good old-fashioned scares. The game starts jabbing you with little jump scares early on, like these phantoms who pop out of the darkness and start chasing you through certain rooms. Enemies can also just start chasing you around when you least expect it. Like here when you see this disc on a pedestal, but when you grab it, this freakish cat ghost wakes up and starts coming at you. Your first instinct is, oh, okay, I'll just go back the way I came, leave the screen. Only to find out that it can follow you across screens, and it's gonna hunt you across the entire map until it either kills you, or you return that disc to where it came from. None of this is full-on nightmare-fuel terrifying horror game stuff, but that's not the point. It's not trying to be. The game is just borrowing these elements of the horror genre tastefully to keep the tension up and keep things interesting, keep things fresh. There are moments like this all over the game, and no two of them are ever quite the same, leaving the door open for all manner of unexpected insanity. Probably my favorite surprise in the game that took me completely off guard is this dog. This dog right here is a bitch. Earlier in the game, you're attacked by these ostriches and realize that if you hide in these underground holes, they can't quite reach you. They come close, it gets intense, but they can't touch you. You're safe. A bit later, you encounter these dogs who will chase you down, but once again, if you can make it into one of those holes in the side of the room, they can't get you. The game is gently lulling you into the false impression that you're safe as long as you can get into a hole. But then this guy's like, nah, fuck it, I'm coming in too. Man, when this happened, I wouldn't say I was screaming per se, but I was yelping. I was like, holy shit. And then I died because I couldn't fit through this hole. But the point here is that this dog is just one example of the many, many times where this game suddenly gets unhinged. And this is good stuff because, well, for one, it's hilarious, but more importantly, there's no way the player can predict when these things are going to happen, so it keeps them engaged for the entire game. And this brings me to the next major reason why this game is so good, which is 2. It keeps the ideas coming. When our lovable video game bastard over here was looking for a project he would want to publish under his new company, I believe that this in particular is the primary reason why he was so impressed with what Basso was working on. Aside from tight gameplay and well-designed levels and all that, the thing he seems to value most is a game that keeps the ideas coming and never stagnates. That's why he's such a Mario fanboy.
There isn't an ounce of fat on this game, it's just idea, and every single one is extremely polished. Even after you think you've seen everything it has to offer, the surprises continue to pile up.
This is also part of the reason why he doesn't like Assassin's Creed. You learn the basic mechanics like climbing, fighting, and stealth at the start of each game, then typically spend the rest of the game doing some variation of that over and over again. Animal Well falls fully into the Mario side of this spectrum. It's constantly introducing new ideas and mechanics, and not a single one of them ever gets stale because right when you get used to it, it either evolves into some new form, or the game introduces a new item, a new monster, a new puzzle, or a whole new area to move you seamlessly right on to the next thing. For example, this first area has the player jumping on bubbles to cross gaps, and you find out that these bubbles are being spat up by these fish. You can use them to traverse both horizontally and vertically, and can even ride them up to find hidden areas. You'll jump from bubble to explore until you reach this room where a seahorse barrages you with bubbles from below, so you can leverage this to make it shoot the bubbles right where you need them to be to reach the switches on the ceiling. From here, you find the Bubble Wand, which lets you create your own bubbles, and the idea just keeps moving forward from there until you gracefully end up in the next area where, depending on which way you went, there's something completely new in store and you'll be so hooked on the new idea that you'll forget all about the bubbles. You never even had time to get bored of the concept because you're introduced to something else before it ran its course. Just like the areas, the items and upgrades also keep coming at a steady rate. You know, in some games you get a cool item and then you use the hell out of it and are well past bored of it by the time you get a new one. But in this game, you're always finding new things, some of which you can use right away, and some of which you don't quite know what they are until it sort of clicks together at some later point. It just keeps moving, keeps flowing, and on this point, the game also has a very great blend of hitting you with platforming challenges, stealth, puzzle solving, and more. It has such a variety of things happening that I don't even know how to classify it. You might say it's a Metroid-style platformer, but in many ways it's more reminiscent of a cryptic puzzle game like Myst or The Witness, or even a survival horror side-scroller like Lone Survivor. The fact that it juggles so many gameplay elements and keeps dancing from one idea to the next is a great achievement and a huge win for Animal Well. But it's not just the variety of ideas that's great, but the sheer grace and brilliance with which they're implemented. Which leads me to the third reason why this game is a straight-up pound house. Reason number 3. It's super creative and thought out. You can tell that Mr. Billy Basso over here not only has a deep sense of almost childlike creativity, but he also really thinks about what he wants the player to experience. He's got this idea in his head, a vision, and you can feel his passion and creativity surging through every pixel of this game. Like how in the Nintendo Direct announcement, you see him playing with his yo-yo there while Donkey throws a discus. You know he loves a good yo-yo and a bit of discus on a Sunday morning, and so he put that into the game and teases it in the official announcement right under our noses. That's a brilliant, brilliant mind right there. All the items in the game are creative because rather than being weapons for combat like what you typically see in Metroid, Axiom Verge, Hollow Knight, etc., the items in this game are tools. Tools that can be put to creative use to traverse the map, kind of like Yoko's Island Express, which is another great game, but I digress. I'll discuss the items a bit more at the end, but right now the creative masterstroke I want to talk about are the stars of the show. The animals, duh. Kinda obvious there. Oh, it's a good game. It's in the title of the game, Animal Well. I love the whole premise of how this game takes place in this cryptic underworld full of all manner of animals, and what's great is that each animal has its own personality. Kangaroos and ostriches, they're aggressive and hostile, while ducks and these fucking tanuki, chinchilla, gopher things are peaceful and lovable. Then you've got the crows. They'll squawk at you cautiously, but they won't throw down unless you make the first move. The animals, whether naughty or nice, almost feel like your constant companions in this underground world. They make you feel like you're at home in some weird, inexplicable way. Like they're the only company you have down here, even if they're trying to kill you. 3 of my favorite examples are the cranes, the doves, and the capybaras. The cranes are... wait, I don't know what birds these are. Are they cranes? Egrets? Herons? I don't know what these are. We're gonna go with cranes. These beautiful beasts are dangerous as you try to pass under them, but they're so hauntingly beautiful that you sort of love them anyway. They aren't even trying to hurt you. They're just plucking at the ground for food and you're getting in their way as they drift through their lonely, peaceful existence. Then you have these glowing white birds, who I assume are doves. They're super friendly and fly exactly alongside you on the same vertical plane, basically becoming moving platforms that you can never fall off because they always catch you when you fall. Because they're doves, and doves represent love. And what does a lover do? They catch you when you fall. Billy Basso, ladies and gentlemen. This guy's a fucking genius. He's a genius. This makes the doves your ally, but also sort of your accidental enemy when you want to get below one of them, because they simply won't let you fall past them. But what's interesting is in this room, you find out that they disappear and can be passed through when exposed to light. What's that all about? Are they ghosts who only manifest their true physical form in the dark? In fact, is every animal in this game a ghost? That seems to be the implication, doesn't it? That this well is a place where dead animals come to rest. There's mystery in the air. Look at the capybaras back here. These might be my favorite pixel art assets in the game. I love how they're just chilling and relaxing in the background. Do they have some sort of hidden purpose? Do they know something more that they're not letting on? Probably. The entire premise and the way it's presented to the player is just a work of wonder. And just to top that off, reason number 4. It's moody. This game has atmosphere, man. Usually I prefer more variety, you know, games that go from dark to light, sunny and tropical, to deserted and cold, but I can be swayed the other way if a game leans into a specific tone, sticks to it, and fully realizes it. And like Hollow Knight before it, Animal Well succeeds in that. It's not exactly brimming with visual or audible variety. The game maintains a consistently cool, dark, damp feeling full of water and cold colors and glimmering neon lights, but this lends itself well to the entire theme. As I touched on in the previous section, this is a ghostly world, a place where animals seem to be drifting in some sort of undying state. It's not meant to be a bright place, but it's also not completely somber and desolate. It's a place of rest and reflection and hope. On top of the thematic reasons for the dark and cold colors, I also appreciate them because they're just so video game-ish. These misty, damp hallways have a sort of neon glow which almost reminds me of a retro game, or even a laser tag arena or something, and of course I mean that in a good way because laser tag is sick. But anyways, you could almost say the whole game has a sort of bioluminescence, like an anglerfish deep under the ocean where no one's ever dared take their pants off and take a little dip. God, there's so many ways I could describe these visuals, but they just grew on me more and more as I delved deeper into the game. And what really brings it to life and cranks it up that last notch is the music. I think without a doubt this music was heavily inspired by Twin Peaks, which for those who don't know was a really famous show by David Lynch that came out in the 90s. The show explores the murder of a young girl named Laura Palmer, and her theme song seems to be the inspiration for the main theme of Animal Well. In Twin Peaks, as the detectives delve deeper into the case, they learn that there is a supernatural connection between the death, the town, and the lead detective, that there is something going on in this town deeper than anyone can imagine. It explores themes of the unknown and unknowable, mystery and fate. Animal Well taps into that same feeling, that there's some supernatural essence bubbling right under the surface, binding all these animals together down in this damn well, for some reason, and perhaps we're not meant to understand why. And so it's no surprise that this musical inspiration was used. And no harm in using that because it's one of the greatest pieces of music to ever grace TV.
Now reach some kind of climax, and I would go, and he said, oh, that's it. Oh, that's so beautiful. Angelo, oh, that's tearing my heart out.
Alright, anyways, the game is unpredictable, ever-changing, creatively brilliant, and atmospheric. This all leads me to probably the most important thing that this game gets right as a Metroidvania, the last thing, and something I think more games in this genre seriously need to take notes from, which is reason number 5. It respects the player's intelligence and rewards their curiosity. This is huge. Good old Billy Basso said himself that he wants it to feel like you're finding something new in a place you've already been before.
I was trying to give people the experience of finding something new in a place they've already been before.
See, I told you that's what he said. I do not lie, I do not lie. And the key here is that it's you who's finding it, and you alone. This game keeps you in control at all times, and your creativity, your curiosity, and your intentions are what see you through from start to finish. Earlier I mentioned the bubble wand, which allows the player to create a bubble and jump on it to gain some height, or shoot a bubble downwards to create a platform while falling. On screen now is the moment where I figured out that if you time it right, you can actually shoot one bubble while jumping from another to stay airborne for as long as you want. Personally, I only figured this out because I saw on the map that there was an opening at the top of this dead-end room, and figured I'd see if I could get up there with the tools I had. And I want to make it clear that I'm a pretty vanilla gamer, so to speak. I'm not one of those creative speedrun type guys, I'm not always trying to exploit and break games or look for glitches. I just had a gut feeling that this could be done with the bubble wand, and was pleasantly surprised when it actually worked and I found this secret room that challenged me to use the mechanic more. What's interesting is how this ability is expected to be discovered by the player on their own. In a typical game, the conventional approach would be to just tell you this is possible when you get the item, maybe also show the controls in the pause menu if you ever need a refresher. But for a Metroidvania, the traditional way of teaching players this mechanic would be not to tell them outright, but rather force them to figure it out through process of elimination. It could trap you in an area where the only way out is across a large chasm that's too far to jump. After exhausting all the other options, you'd be forced to realize that you can bubble your way out, because there's nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. This is how Super Metroid teaches players about the wall jump. In fact, Animal Well does this with the bubble wand itself. You learn that you can shoot a bubble downwards below you while falling because the game forces you to learn that if you want to leave this room. But when it comes to the infinite bubble jumping thing, it's as if though Mr. Billy Basso just doesn't give a rat's ass if you figure it out or not. Like, if you do, it will be an extremely helpful tool across the entire game, but if you don't, well, sucks to suck. But not actually, because even if you don't figure this out, you can still play through the game and enjoy it fully. You'll just be missing one tool in your arsenal that you don't even know you have until maybe, at some point, you might just figure it out. The disc does the same thing. You can throw it to hit switches and distract some enemies like dogs, who can't help but play a little bit of fetch. But you can also jump on it to get endless horizontal distance until hitting an obstruction. This is another thing the game doesn't even try to explain to you. It just sort of explains itself. It feels like something that can be done, and if you're curious enough to try it out, you've just found yourself a neat little ability that can help you beat the game. And again, if you don't, that's cool. These are optional tools that the developer is expecting you to find. This hands-off approach to letting the player discover things for themselves is just so cool, and it extends well beyond the items. Literally 1 minute into the game, I found this secret hidden statue and was like, ooh, what's that? Then later you find out it's a part of a teleportation network, and I was like, oh, okay. Then I learned this flute song that warps me back to this room by mimicking a jumping fish. It all just sort of gently clicks together, giving you these moments of, ooh, I see what's happening here, without jamming information down your throat like a foie gras duck. If you pay attention, you'll see things in the background of most screens, like these. I didn't know what the hell they were for the longest time, but one thing Animal Well does better than any Metroidvania I've played is give the ability to mark stuff down for later. You can place a bunch of pins on the map, and with a certain upgrade you can just straight up draw on the map. That's the game saying to you that it wants you to pay attention to your surroundings and take note of where things are. When you see weird things like this in the background, mark it down. You see a kangaroo statue in the basement and you have no idea why there's a statue of a kangaroo in the basement? Mark that down too. In this room I found these poor cats locked in cages, but noticed that when I played the flute, the tops of the cages lit up. But I had no clue what melody I needed to play, or what would happen if I did. So from then on, every time I saw something related to a cat or a cage, I was always looking for some clue, some sequence of notes I could use to go back there and free the cats. At one point I had the game running on the side while I was making dinner, and this sound just randomly played. And I realized that I heard it before multiple times, but didn't really catch it until that moment. So I was like, what is that? Tried playing it on the flute and nothing happened, and it drove me nuts. Like, oh, what is that? Why did that sound just randomly play? What does it mean? So now I'm thinking about it, wondering if there's some sort of secret right under my nose. This is such a satisfying feeling because it builds intention in the player. You're not just blasting through the game. The game's always licking your curiosity, tickling you from the sidelines. Look, the point here is that the game is always encouraging you to think for yourself. This is actually a classic staple of the Metroid formula, and this approach to game design is also used by From Software in games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, or in puzzle games like Myst and Braid, so I'm not trying to argue that Animal Well is the first game to ever do this, but I would say that it stands as a shining example for how to do it right. Anyways, those are my top 5 reasons why Animal Well is so good. It gets me excited thinking that I haven't seen everything in this game yet, and can dive back into it after releasing this video. What's interesting is, even if I were to 100% clear the game and find all the items and whatnot, I still doubt I'd have experienced everything it has to offer. Animal Well is constantly making you wonder what else it's hiding from you, and I'm sure it has a lot more to hide than we think. On that note, I'll leave you with a message Billy Basso left on the official website prior to the game's release. Animal Well is being made with attention paid to every detail. Great care is being taken to ensure it remains interesting and giving back far into the future, without the need for updates. The main game is just the beginning. Players will be discovering secrets for years. Smash the like button, smash that subscribe button, join the notification bell if you can too, it'll be great.